because the day of the civil libertarians on the left is over. They all exist on the right, with conservatives now. Now here's sort of, after I did this and laid it out, using their own stories, here's how they reacted. They were furious because rather than helping to advance their Russia collusion story and Trump's illegitimate story, I advanced the story that the Obama administration was involved in police state tactics. Look at the extent of it. It's unbelievable. They probably got a FISA warrant and probably abused it. Obama had to know about it. They're sharing information, violating privacy rights, meaning unmasking, but they claim, oh, it's incidental information and so forth and so on. And these lower than 3 IQ type reporters, well, just listen to them. Here's our montage, go.
White House officials say that the president's sources were various conservative outlets, most prominently perhaps radio host Mark Levin, who seemed to take 3 basic chunks of information and combine them into one conspiracy theory of what he calls a silent coup.
And on the conservative Breitbart website, which Friday highlighted a conspiracy-loving radio talk show host, Mark Levin.
Now, the story asserted that Obama has been trying to undermine Trump at every turn. As you can see from the headline, it was inspired by a Thursday night radio segment by conservative talk show host Mark Levin.
Apparently, this idea came from right-wing radio host and unlicensed gynecologist Mark Levin, who ranted about these wiretaps on his radio show. That show was then written up by Breitbart as Mark Levin to Congress investigate Obama's silent coup versus Trump.
What does the White House gain by the President of by Steve Bannon most likely handing the President of the United States a Breitbart article and talking about what a rabid right-wing talk show host has been theorizing?
Start with firebrand conservative radio host Mark Levin. Briefly, for people who don't know, who is he?
He's got quite a following, and he's not just a conservative figure, but often espousing relatively radical positions about the need to reinvent the Constitution and the government and ways in which we think about society.
The notion that Mark Levin is a news outlet, it's not the New York Times, it's not the Washington Post, it's not the Wall Street Journal, it's not the LA Times, it's not a major news network. It's Mark Levin, a guy who, I know what talk radio guys do, on left and right, mostly on right. They rile people up with outrageous charges, and nobody keeps count of them. But here's the President of the United States getting his information from these people.
Evidence for suggesting President Obama has committed a crime seems pretty thin.
The detailed speculation from a conspiracy-loving talk show host, Mark Levin.
Okay. I think we can now officially declare that Trump has a worse media diet than the son of Sam Killer. And he got all his news from a talking dog who told him to murder.
See, the left doesn't mind a police state, ladies and gentlemen, if they're in charge of it. They love Obama. Obama was running, in my view, a quasi-police state. With all this surveillance activity going on and so forth, I'll give you another example. And we've talked about this, the Iran deal. They were surveilling the Prime Minister of Israel, our closest ally. They were surveilling the ambassador to the United States from Israel. They were incidentally surveilling members of the United States Congress. They were surveilling Jewish organizations. They were surveilling prominent Jews. And hardly a concern. And hardly a word. These are facts. This isn't the public record. Oh, they apologized for it and so forth. And they didn't pull back. Now, this is a big deal, as they tried to influence the election in Israel, by the way. The State Department of the President, that's been proven. I'll give you another example, the Internal Revenue Service. The Internal Revenue Service was unleashed against the Tea Party movement. Tea Party organizations, individuals who wanted a tax status so they could promote the Tea Party positions, which is perfectly legitimate. This administration has used the IRS, it has used the NSA, it has used the CIA, this meaning the Obama administration, it has used the FBI, and of course it's used its greatest ally, the media. None of that stuff attacking me even bothers me. I laugh at it. We laugh at it off the air here. We enjoy it. We can get more, send it in. I want to play it. And then it begins to unravel. It begins to unravel. Interview between Mika, by the way, you saw Joe Scarborough, the boy from Deliverance, the morning schmo. Mika is going to be Mrs. Schmo very, very shortly. Between Mika and Evelyn Farkas, a former senior official in the Obama State Department, a political appointee, and she was in charge of the so-called Russia/Ukraine desk over there, I believe at the Defense Department, let me correct this, at the Pentagon. Let's listen to this. You'll recall this. Go ahead.
The other big story of the day, you actually knew about this attempt to get and preserve information, and full transparency, we're doing some work yourself. Tell us about that.
Well, I was urging my former colleagues and frankly speaking, the people on the Hill. It was more actually aimed at telling the Hill people, get as much information as you can, get as much intelligence as you can before President Obama leaves the administration, because I had a fear that somehow that information would disappear.
So stop. Telling the Hill, telling the people in the administration, get as much of this intelligence information, that's classified information, to members of Congress as possible. Because, you know, the incoming administration might destroy it. We want to make sure Congress has it, and Congress does have it, and they've been leaking to the media. Do you notice what's been going on? If you read the New York Times, the Washington Post, and watch CNN, if you're forced to do so like I am, you can see the inside-outside game. Information's being given to Congress. Democrats are leaking it to the media. The media reports it as anonymous sources, as well as Obama holdovers and former Obama officials. And then they use their own leaks to demand investigations. They use their own leaks to demand a special counsel. They use their own leaks to demand independent committee. This is Soviet-style criminalization of politics. That's pure and simple. Go ahead.
With the senior people who left. So it would be hidden away in the bureaucracy, that the Trump folks, if they found out how we knew what we knew about the Trump staff's dealing with Russians, that they would try to compromise those sources and methods.
Did you hear that? Doesn't that sound like somebody who knew what the intelligence information was? If the Trump people knew what we knew about sources and methods and the information we had about them, they might want to destroy it and so forth. Why hasn't she received a subpoena yet? She needs to be subpoenaed. She needs to be questioned under oath, penalty of perjury, obstruction, suborning perjury. I'm not saying she's committed any of these things. I don't know. But she needs to be questioned, and thoroughly. That was big news when we revealed it here on radio and on Levin TV. Now, since then, more and more information is coming out. More and more information is being reported. More and more people are showing courage and showing guts and digging into these things. They saw, well, look, Mark Levin's still standing. They didn't take him out. And maybe we ought to follow up on some of the things he's been saying. And maybe there are people in the government, you know, patriots. There are many, many patriots at these agencies who are probably absolutely disgusted about what's being done. The politicization, the criminalization by the senior people there. And maybe they're being helpful. I suspect they are. And so here from May 4th, 2017, from Circa, this is a brand new site, really. It's a great site. It's managed essentially by John Solomon, who is an intrepid investigative reporter, has been for decades. He's worked at the Associated Press, the Washington Times, and other places as well. And he's had other journalists there working on this too. Check this out, from May 4th. Go.
In the midst of a divisive 2016 presidential election, the Obama administration stepped up its efforts last year to scour NSA intercepts for intelligence about American citizens. Circa has confirmed more than 30,355 searches on NSA metadata, like telephone and email contacts, were conducted last year. That's a 27.5% increase from 2015 and more than a 300% increase from 2013, the first year the government began keeping records on such data mining. Another 5,200 searches were conducted on the actual phone calls and emails, all of them involving U.S. persons. Among the names to be accessed or unmasked were associates of President Donald Trump and even members of Congress. Intelligence officials tell us the sharp increase in searches was made possible by an order that former President Obama gave in 2011 that loosened privacy protections. The American Civil Liberties Union says the rapid spike in the use of NSA intelligence to spy on Americans should alarm everyone.